In the whipping, I'm whipping the soul out it. Chin the tone when I'm festing like Pilates. Why you frontin', you act like you somebody. Keep a trail in the ville, how I go by it. I was stuck in the rut, I was nobody. I've been looking for something to go body. There's an art to the hustle like yo got it. Kid got a kick back and here like a new shotty. In the whipping, I'm whipping the soul out it. Chin the tone when I'm...
Yo, what's going on, Time Clan? It is your boy King Time Next here, back with another video, and I would like to say, welcome to a 2K special. Now, before even revealing this what if, I did a bit of research regarding the time and where Attack on Titan takes place. Starting from the whole incident with the Colossal Titan, it would have been from between 1893 to 1942 on our calendars. Chainsaws were invented around 1830 and were used primarily for medical procedures at the time, so the timelines match up. With this little tidbit out of the way, we can really get started with the what if. In this world, wars were common. There were all sorts of casualties on the daily. Clans tried to expand their influence to other domains, but would always run into some conflict with others who had the same intentions. That was until the fears everyone had began to manifest themselves into physical creation so terrifying that they must have been manifestations of a wretched realm unknown to them at the time. Armies were wiped out from these creatures. People struggled to fend off against these monsters. It took 10 men just to defeat one of these creatures. For years they lived in fear of these manifestations from hell. The humans were no longer the dominant species for what seemed like decades until the Eldian Empire appeared from out of nowhere. Sure, they were home to some rather strong soldiers, but that didn't necessarily mean they could really push back against the demons. Well, not originally anyways. One day the Eldians came out with what appeared to be their own monster of the sorts, but they were capable of knocking down some of the devils. Those that witnessed this were amazed. For once they had some hope. For once they had a fighting chance. For 13 years the Eldians were making waves with what people were now beginning to call a Titan. They fought these monsters, and with such a strong military resource, many of the kingdoms began to ally themselves with the Eldians for their protection. Eldia made waves across the world until someone attempted to off King Fritz's head. The first Titan, Amir, ended up sacrificing her own life, though, in order to save him. In order to bring back the power of the Titan, though, he fed her remains to his 3 daughters, the ones that he had with that very woman. Yeah. This would become a sort of tradition, and families wielding each Titan would be created. 8 families for 8 Titans. The founding Titan remained in the royal family. They were an effective force against the demons for a while, up until around the 145th king. From there, everything went downhill as the families fought over the power of the Titans. The king at the time ended up working with the Tiber, however you pronounce their names, this specific family, to create a sort of hero for Marley, and have it to where it seemed like this civil war drove them down a destructive path, enough to where the Eldian's king was forced to give up most of their land and travel to a small island with just a couple of his subjects. Walls were developed around the island, and the king wiped the memories of his remaining subjects. He had them believe they were the only ones left in the whole world to lead them easier. Have a fresh start, you could say. King Fritz made sure to give a warning to the rest of the world, informing them that if they were to ever try to come for them, he would have tens of millions of Titans trample their forces to the ground. Although he had the power to do so, he knew that he was bluffing. He was too much of a pacifist, desiring peace more than anything. For a time, he was happy, but he pondered on what the next generation would do with his founding Titan. He didn't want them to revert back to their old ways, so he decided to imprint his will upon the founding Titan, so anyone who had royal blood in possession of the founding Titan would be incapable of using it for their own desires. His will would be in the form of chains, imposing itself upon any and all his royal successors. Of course, he couldn't account for everything though. He never thought what would happen if the founding Titan fell into the hands of a regular Eldian who would find a way around the curse of the 145th king, let alone one who had the power of a devil too. Eren Jaeger was the boy's name. He was the son of a man by the name of Grisha Jaeger. Eren had a pretty regular life within the walls. He was the best of friends with a rather intelligent child by the name of Ironman. He mentioned his dreams to Eren on numerous occasions because of the fact he found a book. A book talking about the outside world. This would begin to even inspire Eren to want to peer outside of the walls. He found a little pup one day that was being beaten by some kids. He tried chasing them off, but they just beat him up instead before they quickly got bored and left him in a sorry state. He looked over to what he assumed was some sort of animal. What it was, he wasn't exactly sure, to be honest. It had this weird metallic object sticking out of their face too. He ended up adopting them though and bringing the cute thing back home. His mother was confused by the appearance of the animal but figured she'd let him keep it. Grisha had a different reaction though. He recognized that it was some sort of demon, but he couldn't blow his cover. He looked at the creature oddly before noticing they weren't hostile in the slightest. He let Eren keep the demon as a pet, which brought a smile to the boy's face. That did not mean Grisha wasn't going to keep a close eye on that creature though. Well, while he and his new pet had quite a bit of fun, he would talk about his friend Ayman from time to time and how they both wanted to see the outside world, just be able to explore the whole world and get to experience all the different beauties that he was missing out on while he was trapped within the walls. His animal friend Porkita, I think that's how you pronounce him. He eventually started to dub him by, seemed to really like hearing about his dreams. They'd even snuggle up against the fire whenever it was snowing, while Eren would be talking about any other interests they had. Porkita had something else that was interesting too. His metal appendage was good for chopping down wood. It was great for collecting stuff to burn whenever they needed heat to cook the food for the night. Armin met Porkita and showed a keen interest in the strange creature. He was wondering how they even functioned, but he thought they were extremely cool. One day, Eren, his father, and Paquita were all on the way to meet some of his patients. They were just getting some checkups, but it was still important for them to get that sort of stuff down. Eren wasn't all that interested in joining his father on this sort of voyage. Well, he wasn't interested until Grisha mentioned that the family had a daughter around Eren's age. He didn't want to admit it at first, but that did genuinely catch his attention. Paquita looked up at Eren and noticed a slight blush begin to appear on his face, although he tried to hide it. Paquita simply barked with a smile on their face, seemingly trying to mock him for the fact he was starting to catch feelings for a girl he hadn't even met yet. When they made it to the house though, Grisha immediately realized there was something wrong. He immediately left to inform the police. He told Eren and Paquita to stay in one spot. Don't drift too far, and especially don't go in that house. Eren, you see, he wasn't a good listener. He was 9 and already collecting a body count. 2 bodies were already underneath his name, and Paquita only made it easier for him because he managed to chomp them down. He went and tried cutting off Mikasa's restraints, but she mentioned that there was one issue. What was it exactly? He only took down 2 of them. There were 3. Eren turned around and saw the 3rd kidnapper. He tried making a run for it, but they were already one step ahead of him. They kicked him in the gut with enough force to send him flying back. Paquita tried to get in the way, but they ended up getting kicked out of the way as well. The man went up to Eren, and something different happened in this timeline. The little mercy Eren had in canon was gone here. They didn't hesitate for a second when it came to brutalizing Eren. He was stomping down on the boy's chest before causing it to collapse on itself, puncturing his heart and other organs. Eren was begging Mikasa the whole time to fight back for her own survival. A spike went through her eyes before she broke out of her restraints, through pure strength alone, but the damage was already done. The life in Eren's eyes were gone now. Paquita saw this and they were angered by this. In a fit of rage, both Mikasa and Paquita charged at the one who killed Eren. Mikasa grabbed Paquita and used his chainsaw to cut down the man's legs. They heard the guy howl in pain. The kidnapper tried to fight back even in their sorry state, but they were already losing a lot of blood. He was done for. When Mikasa realized what she had just done, she drowned Paquita, who consumed the blood like a dog drinking water before running over to Eren's remains. He started tearing up at the sight of him. He knew that the only thing he could do at this point was to make a contract with Eren. He managed to communicate with Eren in a way before about this sort of stuff. Sure, it was difficult telling Eren that he was a demon from the pits of hell and all, especially when he had to rely on sign language and carving messages down on wood for Eren to get the message down, but the boy was accepting of him. Considering there were literal malformed giants right outside of the walls, that wasn't so bad. When Paquita told him about contract making, he remembered him joking around, saying that if he ever died, Paquita could probably help out in some sort of form or fashion. Paquita found themselves in the cavity of the boy's chest and began to take the place of his heart. Eren's body was healing rapidly now. Mikasa witnessed this and honestly didn't know how to react. Once he had completely healed, she noticed a cord sticking out of his chest. which she didn't have any time to even think about, because Grisha barged into the house seeing the massacre in front of him. So much blood, a couple corpses scattered across the area. It was horrific to say the very least. He saw that his son was unconscious and there was some cord sticking out of his chest. Was this Paquita's doing? Of course. It would make perfect sense for it to have been them. Of course it would be the works of a literal demon! Grisha started freaking out a little until Mikasa walked over to him. She slammed some sense into him right then and there. She quickly explained the situation to Grisha. He had to think rationally here. Sure, he didn't like the fact that his own son just killed people and basically already experienced death from one of them. But if what this girl was saying was correct, then there was a chance Eren was still alive. He walked over to his son and quickly checked to see if there was a pulse. Thankfully there was one, even if it was slight. He lifted him up and threw him onto his back. He looked over to Mikasa and told her to never speak of this event to anyone. This would remain a secret between the three of them. Mikasa nodded in understanding. I'm fine with that, Mikasa said. Alright then. Come with me. You'll be staying with us from now on, Mikasa. When Eren woke up, he found that his strength, speed, and durability had increased by quite a bit. He was able to rival Mikasa in those categories, although when it came on to battle prowess, she was still a tier ahead of him. He didn't know what happened to him at first, but he started having dreams of Paquita not too many days after discovering his newfound strength. When he asked his father about the string attached to his chest, Grisha told him not to think about it for right now. All he had to do was to make sure not to pull it unless it was a dire sort of situation. The dreams Eren had revolving around Paquita involved him simply communicating with the creature. It was easier to communicate now. During the nights, Paquita would try to just tell him more about their innate nature and to prepare for the rest of his kind in the upcoming years. He made a contract with Eren to continue fighting to see the outside world in exchange for Paquita becoming his height. But he warned Eren not to breach the contract. There would be some serious consequences if he did, and if he pulled that cord, he'd advise that they only pull it when their life or someone else's life was at risk. More time would pass with Eren adapting to this sort of new body up until the attack on Wall Maria. This was bad. Very bad. Very extremely no. Let me try and re-say this. This was atrocious, you could say. Everyone was running in fear as the 60-meter Titan made quick work of dismantling their wall. They weren't the only ones here though. An armored Titan appeared, smashing through several of the buildings as well, leaving everywhere in ruins. Eren and Mikasa were searching for his mother. She was trapped under some rubble. Her legs were crushed and she couldn't even move. They tried lifting the rubble off of her, but they were still too weak. A smiling Titan was beginning to approach them. Eren's eyes widened, and out of what seemed like instinct, he unbuttoned his shirt to reveal his cord. He yanked it, and he began to transform. The roar of chainsaws could be heard all throughout the whole of the now destroyed Wall Maria. The Chainsaw Man had arrived.